Okay, my name is Enrique Jaime Colbeck. I am air traffic controller. I work on Mexico Airport, International Airport, named Benito Juarez. I'm a controller since 25 years ago. And the Mexico Control Center have sightings with a lot of aircrafts and this kind of phenomenon. They don't have a special way to appear; just appears suddenly, and frequently crossing tracks of the flights. The flight of the exposes on our screen, and sometimes goes with them closer, and the pilots scare us sometimes, nervous first, and then scare, give us information about it. Who is that kind of object flying with us? Or require traffic information in case that this phenomenon pass and happen very quickly in front of them. Because we don't have any kind of control about it, this kind of phenomenon, of course, and the pilots definitely feels in some way, ¿cómo se dice? Inseguros? Insecure, yes, about the control that it has around of the aircraft. Flying saucers. In the past, to hear that in the past results very funny. Today is very serious for us, especially after the incident that we have with Aeromexico Fly 109, I think. Well, but 4 years ago, more or less, we have an incident very dangerous with an unidentified object flying in a static fly over the World Trade Center building. It's a very important building for the city. It's located in the final track of the runway the final of the runway is 5 on the Mexico Airport. So this fly, we have working with them and coming from Guadalajara to Mexico, and I passed the control of this aircraft to the other controller in a point named Paz de G. That point is the beginning of the one of the arrivals that we have there for runways 5 precisely, and we saw in the screen two echoes very close of the aircraft in that moment, but very suddenly and quickly, and disappear immediately. We have radar contact apparently more or less 30 seconds, no more, and the aircraft, it doesn't report nothing about it. I mean, the pilot doesn't report nothing. Then we knew about that this aircraft in the final approach track, in the final turn, has some kind of trash or was hitting. How do you say golpeado? Hitting in his principal landing gear, and the right side, I think. I'm not sure. For this kind of situation, this kind of objects, it's important that you know that we received information 2 hours ago, more or less, by different ways, and information about that people that was watching that phenomenon flying static over the building, then authorities that was answering about that what kind of aircraft is flying there. Of course, nobody knows nothing about it, and then we know something about that the hitting of this object, and was very dangerous for us, for the responsibility that represents, but because we need to know everything that be flying in our airspace. We have the pilot's reports and sightings at the same time in the radar.
You do?
Yes, we had reports, a lot of reports about objects flying in the very close to the final track, about 5 or 4 miles on final of the runway 05. It's very curious that we have information about of that point precisely. In that week we had about 7 reports of pilots at different times to have traffic inside, unknown traffic of course. And it's important that you know that appears in our, that things appear in our screen just like an point in a digital way, and they move definitely very, very fast. The human aircrafts, I mean, talking about now Boeing 727, Boeing 757, moves in a different way, and of course his speed is completely different. It's very reduced in that condition, and when you have the view of the airspace and this screen, the distance between that kind of moments represents around 20 or 30 miles in a second. That is very weird, and of course nothing compared with the other or the human aircrafts, and they turns almost 90 degrees in a second or in a half second. March 4, 1992, we detected 15 objects west side of the Toluca airport, that is very close of our international airport at 50 miles more or less. Then July 28 of 1994, we have almost a collision or something that we can name in that way with a domestic flight of Aeromexico 129, commanded by the pilot Raimundo Cervantes Ruano. We have a lot of sightings reported by the pilots that give us information about the weird traffic or something, bright lights, and different times. He said sometimes we have a brighting light, very brighting, in front of us, flying opposite or is static in a static flight, and we have the same detection there. So this kind of phenomenon appears sometimes 12 times a day, 12 times at the month or at the week, and you don't have information about these objects 3 or 4 months, and then appear suddenly and frequently. The Aeromexico Fly 904 has another almost collision that was reported for the pilot Corso, the Capitan Corso, at 11:30 in the morning, and we detect that object on the radar suddenly, just for a moment, turning in this way, or 90 degrees turn, or descend immediately in a diagonal way to very close to the mountains. No, that is very different, completely different, and completely different, of course, of the military aircrafts also. This phenomenon, of course, doesn't come with a flight plan. Nobody knows nothing about them. Appears when they want to appear. It is very dangerous sometimes. The pilots turns to be hungry or scared and require immediately information. What is that? And we have information. What was the aircraft doing? Many things. A lot of pilots in reports when immediately they have a sighting, to have problems with his instruments of flight, precisely the electronic instruments. September 15 of 1994, we have a detection about 5 hours more or less on a radar and a new equipment that we believe that that equipment was working in not a good way, because it's not human that you have detection by 5 hours of the same object and apparently without movement. Well, we concur with the technical persons of radar in our country that the radar system was working well. Around 5 miles, 2 miles in some cases. It's very close for an aircraft and dangerous, because the pilot doesn't know nothing about that what is going to do the other pilot. Well, in this case, no. And a Mexican pilot has had a terrified experience with 3 objects that they flying around there, around them, and 2 of these objects flying on top of the wings of the aircraft, and the other fly in front of them in the cockpit cabin, then goes down and he can, ¿cómo se dice golpear? Hit in the aircraft, the small aircraft. We have, or until I know, the radar registered that information, have registered about that information, and had the information about the objects in another place, then close to the aircraft, then only one object, and in that moment precisely the pilot reports that he can't control where all the aircraft, the movement. I mean, apparently these objects is taking him to somewhere, I don't know. But apparently, fortunately for us, or for them, they live in his aircraft and the pilot very close to the volcanoes, precisely. And we have 2 volcanoes, one live volcano, and it's very dangerous. It's very close to our city. Well, a lot of sightings was reported precisely around of the volcano. Some pilots have been sighting when these objects of flying saucers flying or going down in the volcano, inside of the volcano. Then the north of the airport and north of the city, and between 2 points, one named Pachuca and the other is San Mateo. The others, and the most dangerous, was reported at 5 miles in the final course of the runway. That is over the city, where we are around 140 controllers on the Mexico Center, and I think that 50 at least we have been information about objects and a screen and a visual contact with them. We have a very funny visual contact. We have 2 Mexican aircrafts flying bound to coming from the north to the airport, flying to land, when one of them reports to have inside a small object of red color flying faster and passing beside him very fast, and the aircraft that was flying behind of the first reports to have another more inside. When that happened, we count with 1 minute to having inside, and a lot of people run to the windows to see that, to try at least to watch this phenomenon, and they have visual contact with these 3 different objects different color. Was what red, and the other two white, I think, but very so bright. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, and around 32 controllers have the same sighting, the same phenomenon inside. Our radar, and at the same time, like in other radars in the world, doesn't detect light. Only objects, solid objects flying. That is very important. Perhaps be the Sara Cuevas case. This lady had a sighting with his camera at the same time that we have a detection on a radar screen 40 miles from that point at the same time, and we receive information for different sources, yes, about that sighting. That's happened on Metepec, and after that we have a very busy week with sightings each day for a week, and then we have the trouble with the Aeromexico Fly 109 that had a crash with a known object in the World Trade Center. And when you have information about pilots, controllers, or people walking in the street at the same time of the same object, at the same moment, definitely you are talking about a sighting. Very real. November 24, 1994, we have on service officially our new radar system, and after that moment we have information very exactly about of these sightings at the same time with the pilots and detections. That's why I'm here, because we consider in my country that this is very dangerous. The important thing for me and for the professional guys like me is that they represent a traffic and control traffic, and very dangerous traffic for our aircrafts and any places of the world. That is very important for us, and results to be just a traffic, unknown traffic, but at least traffic. We have registered information about 12 or 15 echoes at the same time, and that is very dangerous. Yes, very close to the town, and to the airport also, in a dangerous way, because we have a lot of airbornes and landings, and a lot of traffic crossing our area. It is very dangerous, in a visual way and instrument way in the same. In his film has around of 50 small objects. Well, it is very important. If our radar it doesn't have detection after 40,000, these objects was filmed very close to the airport. That's at 3.5 miles, because we have checking that. And the people has visual contact with these kind of objects. Can you imagine the size of these objects? And like our civil aircrafts, we have two or, well, for example, on a Boeing 727, we have 150 souls flying. Well, taking in account this kind of similar condition and the size of these objects, well, you have 1,000 of people there, no? We have a lot of more cases, but I don't want to use more time in this. The pilots reports the size of these objects around 100 meters or greater. This is important. I remember reports of Mexican aircraft flying from Veracruz to Mexico. To have inside an object over the el volcano named Pico de Orizaba. Another pilot flying behind, around 40 miles behind of the aircraft, the first aircraft, has the same object inside, and they are talking about that it was enormous. They don't say, but well, if you have two aircrafts watching the same phenomenon, and between 40 miles between the aircrafts, the object was enormous. It's very important that the people on the world knows these events and consider that could be very dangerous for aeronautical situation, especially in my country. I don't know why in my country that's occur frequently, but the point is that happens. But our Mexican authorities had a lot of information about the pilots and controllers' reports of UFOs in our country. We are, in Mexico, we are 4 control centers and 52 airports. And in the 4 control centers, we have been taking information about this kind of phenomenon, of course, in the 4 centers. Monterrey, yes, in the 4. In Monterrey, on Mérida, and Mazatlan. In Mazatlan, we have an information about that around 15 years ago, and 2 commercial flights and another private aircraft, but an executive aircraft, flying in Mazatlan airspace, very close for with the border with the United States, the border. Information about of 4 or 5 objects flying around there, and they turns to be scared some way, and they decide finally to land on Mazatlan. They don't consider safety the airspace in that moment, and I'm sure about, and I think, almost sure that your country has information, because all the controllers on the world are victims in some way of this kind of phenomena, and the pilots also. And I'm sure that in your country, a lot of controllers have been information about pilots' report and reports and sightings of pilots, and definitely they have been taking information in his screams, I'm sure.